Welcome to Tech Wednesday here at RME USA. This is Derek Badala and Jeff Petersen here to answer your questions. We are live streaming on several channels, YouTube, Facebook, our RME USA Facebook. So if you're on one of those sites, all you need to do is simply type in and Jeff, both of us would be happy to answer. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Derek. How are you doing over there?
Doing great. I understand you finished up a webinar today on the RME ADI2 DAC. Did you get
Yeah.
any questions or any worthwhile feedback?
There was not a lot of questions, but we did have a lot of people paying attention. I just kind of gave them an overview of the three different models and talked about all the, RME specific features. Obviously, DAC is kind of a simple thing at the core. It's a digital analog converter, and that could be with USB or a digital connection. But there's so much more technology packed into the RME product that we can talk for an hour and only talk about things that only RME does. So it's kind of fun. Feedback loop. Hello.
Yep, I'm there.
Okay. Well,
Sorry, I was
uh,
just going to our Facebook page and the audio was playing.
yes, happens to me too. Okay.
So, what kind of questions did you get?
There really nobody was really speaking up, unfortunately, this time. But normally the questions are things like, how do I use it with an iPad? Or does it work with my phone? And the answer is yes. The RME ADI2 DAC and ADI2 Pro both have a USB connection, and that is a class compliant connection, which means it works without any drivers. So you can plug it in directly on a Windows 10 computer or a Mac or an iPad or even most of current Android phones, and it just works as a output device directly. You don't need to do anything special for that to work.
Do you get a lot of questions on using like the baby face with an iPad?
Yeah, that comes up quite often actually because there's so many cool music creation apps for the iPad.
Now, is it true that the newer iPads, you don't need the power supply for the baby face? You can bus power it.
Yeah, so it depends on what kind of connection you have on your iPad. If it's Lightning, you still need an adapter, but the adapter has a DC jack that you can plug a power supply into, and that will power your baby face. If it's the iPad Pro with the USB-C port, then you just plug it in and it'll
All right.
use the iPad's battery.
What's your favorite music creation app on the iPad for people using the baby face, let's say?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's it's endless, but I think Cubasis is amazing, and uh, um, what's the other DAW? The
Have you ever used Aria?
Yeah, Aria. That's what I was trying to think of. That is
Yeah, that's the one I've
fantastic.
used.
Yep,
And it was cool when I was using the baby face with Aria, I could see all the baby face inputs. So I wasn't
yep,
limited to just one and two. And um, being a
yeah.
guitar player, the baby face is channel 3 for the guitar. And when I was using another manufacturer's class compliant interface, I was really struggling with that.
Hmm.
So it was really cool. And once I downloaded the Total Mix for iPad, which is I think $1 or something,
I
then I
think it's
could.
four, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I did it, I think it was less, but when it basically, because iOS on the iPad is very limited to, like the
Yes.
audio stuff. Sorry, I talk with my
Yep.
hands. And basically I was really struggling. And then once I downloaded the Total Mix app for the iPad, it kind of and used loopback. It really overcame all the issues I was
Yeah.
having
Yep.
before.
The normal thing is you get, one or two channels in and two channels out. But there are apps that can see all channels. So I can even plug in like a Fireface UFX2 with an iPad and use 22 channels in and 22 channels out. So that's all up to the app and what it supports. But yeah,
Yeah, isn't it
that
true you can also use the Octamic XTC as kind of an audio interface in that situation?
absolutely. Absolutely. The USB port on the Octamic is a class compliant interface and it will show up as a 24 channel IO. Now, you got 8 mic inputs and then the rest are digital channels, but yeah, it's a great way to do a quick recording into a multi track DAW software without having to lug a computer around with you.
Cool. So what other questions these days are you getting a lot of?
I mean, every day is something new. Talking with a customer today about how to get Dante in and out of their church's network for recording and playback. And so we kind of started from the standpoint of Dante Virtual Sound Card and what that can do and cannot do, and what are the limitations. And kind of eventually came around to a system where they needed low latency. So
So
we
then you got the Digiface. I just happen to have it here.
exactly, yeah. So the Digiface Dante is a perfect solution there. Dante Virtual Sound Card's awesome, and you can't beat the price, but it's great if you just want to capture. If anything beyond that, if you want to do anything besides just receive audio and record it, then you need something with better performance, and that's
So
where
you're
the
saying
RME
the
driver comes in.
playback of Dante when if you're trying to play audio out to the Dante network, it
Yeah,
starts to get weird.
yeah, exactly. So let's say you're connecting to some mixer or something, right? So you're sending some streams from Dante Virtual Sound Card. The mixer's also getting streams from other places. Those channels coming from the Dante Virtual Sound Card are going to have a lot more latency. So, if you're doing things that are time sensitive, it's not going to work, right? I mean, if you're just playing something, fine. You don't care if it's 10 milliseconds later than everything else. But as soon as you need something where there's, some time element of playing things together, then it's just not possible anymore.
So you're saying if I'm receiving audio from a console
Hmm.
and then I'm trying to fire Ableton Live for playback, and there's a relationship time wise, you're saying Dante Virtual Sound Card is not useful in that
Yeah,
situation.
the channels coming from the DVS system are going to be delayed significantly compared to everything else.
No kidding. That I didn't know. But you're saying when you're receiving audio off the Dante network into your DAW, it's not bad.
Yeah, if I'm just doing like a recording of some streams coming in, then that's fine. I don't care about the latency, right?
Good to
What the
know.
Digiface does in that scenario, though, which is great, is gives me meters on all my channels coming in via Dante.
Yeah.
It also allows me to have a confidence mix, so I know what's going on all those input channels. I can listen to it on headphones in real time, and at the same time I'm recording.
Yeah, I was going to connect my Digiface to my laptop, but I don't want to crash this live stream trying to do that.
Yeah,
Um, the
Zoom's
other
not too
thing,
happy with that.
I know we're doing a tech support live stream, but that sounds like a cool how-to video.
Hmm.
We should do like a Dante virtual sound card versus Digiface Dante video and show like, okay, capturing audio, here it goes. This is how we do it. But playing back, yeah, we should definitely do something like that.
Yeah.
So
And
I'm
they
looking.
have this system called Dante Via as well, which is pretty cool, and that allows you to take something like a Babyface and make it be IOs for Dante Virtual Sound Card. But that adds another 10 milliseconds in each direction of latency. So that's not really a good solution in a lot of cases either.
Yeah. So I mean, I worked on a call today. We were using a Digigram crosslink and a Koya guest with a Fireface unit and setting up mix minuses in
Mm.
Total Mix with Black Circle Radio. That worked out really
Oh,
well.
great. Yeah, I spoke with
Um,
Mitch yesterday.
yeah, he said you were very helpful. I think he was using an Octamic along with his Fireface
Yep.
and a Digigram and doing several things and an ADI2 Pro even.
Yeah,
He
that's
was
what we
doing.
worked on. We tied in the ADI2 Pro to his system so he could send his mix out through the ADI2 Pro and then capture it back in on the ADI's inputs and then, sort of print that processed mix.
Right.
Pretty cool. He loves it. He was loving the sound of it. He says, I said, well, the UFX is great, but yeah, the ADI2 is definitely something special.
So when you're using a UFX Plus as line inputs, do you
Hmm.
find a gain setting? Like if you're using the line input on the mic channel, because I think
Hmm.
on the other inputs, it's just +4, -10. And you said it was a few other settings, right? So if
Well,
I'm using input 1 through 8 on a Fireface, because I think the mic channel start at 9, 10, 11, 12, it's just a like a switch. But if I use the mic input, the Neutrik
hmm.
combo line input, do you find a gain setting, just leave it at 0, or do you put it somewhere else to get a good line input?
Well, so
If that makes sense. I don't know if I'm
You
asking the
can, you
question
know,
clearly.
it's not totally clear to me, but let's say, so we're talking about the combo inputs on the front. Those can work with mic level, instrument level, or line level.
Right.
So if the preamp gain is down, you just plug in an XLR. It's going to work at a +4 level.
Got it.
And then you have gain from there. So if you need to adjust it, you can do that. But I don't know if you knew this, but there's a kind of a different scenario with the UFX2 and UFX Plus for the line ins on the back, where there's an extra sort of fine adjustment available now. So you can select either the low gain input, which accepts up to +19. That's like our studio level. Or you can select +4. And then you have an additional 9 dB of gain available. And if you want to let me share my screen, I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
show
Go
that.
for it.
Okay. So what we're talking about here is right here on the Fireface UFX. This is the UFX Plus. UFX2 is the same. So here's my mic input. Mic 9. I have this is an SM7B, so I've got tons of gain going on here. 75 dB of gain, 74. But on the input channels over here, see, I can select either +4 or low gain. And then I've got an additional 12 dB adjustment that I can do to work with other signals in case it's coming in too low. So if I set it to +4 and I plug in an unbalanced signal, that's what we would call in the pro audio world -10, which is like your typical RCA connection off of a CD player. Then we can use this gain knob to gain that up a little bit before we go to the A to D converter, and then it's perfect.
Got it.
So really cool. And this works along the lines the same way as on the Ferrofish. You have a trim on every channel where you can adjust, input sensitivities.
Yeah, I didn't know that. And that's
Yep.
only on the UFX2 and the UFX Plus.
Right. The older ones just had 3-way switches, -10, +4, low gain.
Right. Right. Okay. So what other interesting things are going on with tech support? I know we're still getting inquiries on the Mac issue and
yeah, every
the
day.
M1.
The new Mac security stuff, I totally understand why they do it, and it's a good thing overall, but it could work better. So that's a kind of a struggle, is just the users are not getting the alerts on the screen that they're supposed to get. So we have to kind of talk them off the ledge and help them get Apple to play nice with the driver.
Oh, we got our first question here. Will you guys be coming out with any half rack size units, aka a Fireface 400 UCX, etc., that will have a native Thunderbolt 3 USB-C connector?
Well, that's we get that question a lot, actually. Probably not is the truth. I mean, it's possible that something may come like that, but really the reasoning around using Thunderbolt 3 is for extreme high bandwidth. And something like the Fireface 400 or Fireface UC, where you're getting about 18 channels in and out, that just doesn't even remotely call for that kind of bandwidth capability. USB 2 is already perfectly fine for that. There's really no benefit to USB 3 or Thunderbolt. So
Unless you're doing greater than 70 channels
yes,
of audio.
exactly. Once you get above to higher channel counts, then yeah, absolutely. Thunderbolt's
So it's funny
that.
that question came up. So I have an 8-page document, The Secret Behind Audio Latency, that I'm proofreading for a colleague. And he's been in communication with Matthias Carstens, who is instrumental in all of the Fireface products. And we had an extensive discussion yesterday about latency and about USB 2 and USB 3. And USB-C and USB 3 are sort of interchangeable.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of direct access memory with Thunderbolt. And the fact, and he's been doing a lot of research, and there's a thing called DAW Bench you can go look at. It's
DAW
on
Bench is fantastic. I just want to throw in there. It's
that website, Gear Sluts, which changed names to Gear
Space.
Mm-hmm. And so I spent a lot of time, because I get this question a lot in the sales environment. So my job is to condense a lot of guru talk into something understandable in 2 minutes or less. So this will be my attempt to share with what I learned so far. I'm not the expert, but here's what I know. Every operating system and every version of every operating system is different. So a lot of the manufacturers that use Thunderbolt, let's say, they just go with the off the shelf way that is implemented. What RME does differently, and don't take RME's word for it, this is actually written about at Dawbench as well. So you kind of have an independent, verifiable opinion on the matter. We write our own FireWire and our own USB controllers, and how we access USB is different than everybody else. So in many cases, not all cases, but many cases, our USB driver is faster than a competitor's Thunderbolt driver. There are exceptions, and there's published exceptions at Dawbench. And the reason those exceptions exist is because every operating system, and as I said earlier, every variation of an operating system addresses latency a little differently as Apple and or Microsoft do what they do. And those are moving goalposts all the time. So what RME does is they try to work at it the most efficiently, how they access it. So round trip latency with, convolution reverbs and dynamics and plugins all running. Typically, I think RME had 10 out of the top 20 performing round trip latency from PCI Express, hands down the fastest.
Yeah.
Then we are USB 3 and USB 2. So, but it's always changing. So there's no concrete answer that's biblical, that's always going to be true, because every operating system and every update to every operating system throws a variation.
Yeah.
And it's greatly explained, and it's actually addressed. Adrian Lehrman at RME is actually addressing some of that here, and it gets really in the weeds. But I think what this customer is getting at is just convenience. Probably I have a Thunderbolt port and I just want to use it. I don't want to have to get an adapter and all that. So the Babyface Pro FS, we include the USB. What is it? The squares Type B. I always get this confused.
Yeah, Type B to Type C.
Yeah, the Type B to Type C, and it's compatible. And then all of our MadiFace XT, because it does hundreds of channels at once, and the UFX Plus, because it does 90 something channels at one time. We put USB 3 on there. And of course, we also put Thunderbolt on that one product. But to get it on a Babyface or get it on a UCX like product, as Jeff said, it's only 18 inputs. You're paying more money for a technology you're not even getting any benefit from.
Exactly. And not only that, but compatibility. So if we have a USB 2 device, that's compatible with every computer made in the last 10, 15 years easily. But a Thunderbolt device, especially a Thunderbolt 3, that's only going to be compatible to the newest Mac. So, it comes down to RME philosophically is very much behind USB and believes in USB, and they write their own code, and we have our own USB controller that's running in hardware in the RME box. So we're able to, achieve Thunderbolt type latencies over USB already and performance. So it's kind of to us, it's like, oh, well, it's a no-brainer. Of course we use USB. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. But yeah, who knows, 2 years down the road from now, or even a year from now, that may change and we may have several new Thunderbolt devices coming out. But I just don't see that happening unless we're talking about things like networking systems or MADI systems.
Yeah, I don't know if I can pull up the slide fast enough. I'll try. And John, thanks for letting us know we addressed the question. And if you have any follow-up questions, I'm looking at your typing right now. Let us know. But we get this question a lot about USB, USB 3 to Thunderbolt. Why is there FireWire on the 802 and the UCX? Does that mean those are obsolete? No. I mean, there's also USB on those two products. So we always tell people, especially folks running Pro Tools and older Macs that are afraid to update, it's kind of an unwritten rule. You don't update your operating system if you're running Pro Tools unless you absolutely have to.
Yeah.
And so we know for a fact there's people that bought Macs that are perfectly working beautifully that have FireWire on it. And again, FireWire is a perfectly suitable bandwidth for up to a certain number of channels. And so it's backwards compatible. So if you have a UCX or an 802 Fireface, I'm talking about, it'll work with those older Macs, but it also has USB 2.0. So it'll work with current computers. So it's been a real convenience.
And, worst case, you can still do a Thunderbolt to FireWire adapter if you need to down the road.
Exactly. In fact, I'm going to try to pull up that that graphic while we're talking, since we're getting questions about this right now.
Yeah, well, speaking of the adapters, I get a question. I'm getting this a lot actually, which is people wanting to connect FireWire to USB.
Okay.
So FireWire to USB, it simply doesn't happen. It does not work. There's no adapter that works. You can buy one, but it doesn't do anything. All it does is provide power. So FireWire to Thunderbolt 3, which is a USB-C connector, this USB-C port like you'd have on your newer Macs, or even your phone probably has that, or iPad Pro. That's USB-C port. So Apple's ports are actually combinations. They have three things on that one jack. That's doing USB 3.0, it's doing Thunderbolt 3, and it's also doing the display port video. So it's a HDMI kind of connection inside as well. So depending what you plug in, it'll automatically negotiate that. So we can just plug in USB. It works as USB 2.0 or USB 3.0. We can plug in Thunderbolt, Thunderbolt 3, and it will work as Thunderbolt 3, or you can plug in a display to it and it'll work as a display port. So it's very versatile, but only having one type of connection, now you're talking about a bunch of adapters to do what you need to do.
So another great. I'm downloading a presentation to pull up a couple of those latency slides. But another question from John: as your interfaces are coming with bundled plugins, how much, if any, processing is being handled by the interface, or is it completely native CPU handlers? So, a couple things. The Fireface UFX Plus, for example, has effects and dynamics that run on the chip in the hardware. So in the cases of using total mix effects, using the delay, using the reverb, using the compression dynamics, that's all hardware, has nothing to do with the computer CPU. The plugin bundle, which I think John is referring to. John's like, please never get rid of FireWire. The plugins that come with the Babyface and the Fireface, and this was a thing that started happening in 2020. So he's talking about S-Gear, which is the guitar amp simulation and program. There's also BrainWorks Opto Compressor and Opto X. Those are just standard VST AU plugins that run on your CPU. They do not run at all on the RME side. However, one of the advantages that RME has running native plugins, which is what they're called, is that our drivers are so fast and we have very low latency. So you're going to, if you were to run these plugins on other hardware, you will have noticeable performance differences versus an RME. So anyway.
Yeah, theoretically, yeah, the RME driver is very efficient and very good at running plugins at low latency.
All right. So let me pull up a slide that I got to switch my view here, doing too many things at once. But I have a slide here that talks about bandwidth for FireWire and for USB and Thunderbolt. So I'm going to share my screen. Forgive me for being a little slow because I'm trying to monitor questions and do this all at once. Okay, so Jeff, you can see that, right?
Yep.
Okay, so what you're looking at is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars, and this is megabits per second, and it's just talking about at 24-bit, 48K. The blue line is the amount of bandwidth required to do 64 audio channels in and out simultaneously. And as you can see, it's not a lot of bandwidth. And you can see FireWire has a total bandwidth right here that I'm using with my mouse. And then USB 2 is a little bit more. The USB 3 is up to 5,000, and Thunderbolt way high. But to do
the green is the excess bandwidth.
Yeah, I mean, to do what most of us
excess you're not using.
Yeah. So the green is bandwidth we're not using. The blue is all that you're using when you're doing 64 audio channels. And I don't mean 64 tracks in your DAW. I mean, like, I got 64 independent audio channels coming into my audio interface and going out at the same time, which I would argue 99% of the home recording people never come close to that. So this is why FireWire and USB 2 is perfectly suitable. Um, so it's really something to be quite aware of.
I remember that chart. I made that
Yes,
chart.
you probably made that chart.
I
Um,
did.
again, let's see if we have any other questions here. No. Well, I don't. I mean, we covered kind of this week's questions that we get a lot of. I mean, there's always drivers and stuff. We're working to improve the RME USA site and make it more simple to find things. We're working on an automated question and answer so you can
Mm-hmm.
learn what interface is right for you. I know Jeff is working on some good question and answer logic on helping customers with their drivers and with their security issues. Um, there was an interesting
Yeah, we
question
just want to help
today.
people find what they're looking for easier. Sometimes navigating the website can be a little tricky. There's so many different places to end up. So yeah, we're hoping to allow you to just type into that chat and find what you're looking for within a couple of clicks. But of course, we're here to help. If you have questions, we're always happy to help on the phones or emails as well. Hey, I did get a question here in our YouTube channel. Um, do you prefer loopback to add your mic, or do you add the input directly to stream?
I
I guess you
prefer
mean
loopback.
regarding streaming on Zoom or something along those lines, I
I
guess.
think so. Yeah, I think that's what they mean.
Yeah.
I prefer
Well, I'm.
loopback for a couple reasons. I
Mhm.
was just going to say because a lot of times in the streaming, I like to use music. So I set like if you're using Zoom as your encoder or OBS, you have the option to do your Zoom meeting in mono or stereo or enable stereo. And I always do stereo just in case I'm going to share music or audio. And if I do that and I'm only using the input, then people are only going to hear this microphone on the left channel, unless I have my Zoom encoder set to mono.
Mhm.
And then the other by using loopback. In fact, I'll just share my screen and show you what I'm talking about. Let's see here, total mix. So my microphone is right there on analog input one, and down here on the bottom, I'm using loopback, and I'm able to pan the microphone. Now, so if I turn loopback off, then a lot of times if you don't realize it, your mic might be pan left like it is now, and you can see I'm only coming out of the left channel.
Mhm.
So by using loopback, even if I forget to do the pan, I'm still down the center.
Yep.
That's one benefit. And then any music that I play here is going to show up, and I can do it in stereo. So that's for me. I prefer loopback for that
Yeah,
reason.
loopback's fantastic for Zoom because it allows you to do a lot more than just take a mic input, right? So I can have mics on an instrument and give a music lesson with Zoom by having using Total Mix as my mixer to get into Zoom input.
Yeah, you know what? I'll share my screen. You guys, everyone on this live stream, Jeff, you should be able to see the Zoom window now, right?
Yep.
You can see all the Zoom controls at the bottom. So right here, you only get your audio interface as a choice. Now I'm on a Mac. So if you're on a Windows, there's a couple other things in the control panels that play a role here. But if you use your Mac and you don't go into your Mac settings and change anything that defaults, everything's going to be 1 and 2. So when I select the Babyface Pro, I can't select an input. It's just fixed to input one if it's mono, or input 1 and 2 if it's
Mm-hmm.
stereo. Um, so that, and then over here in the audio settings, if I like to enable high fidelity music mode and do stereo audio. So if you haven't done that in Zoom and it's mono, then some of what we're saying might not matter. But since I always have things in stereo, and we kind of, the consensus is Zoom is the most popular of the you know
Yeah, everybody
software
has it.
meeting. I mean, there's Microsoft Teams, there's GoToMeeting, and some of these other ones, which have, some of them have very little audio control. I applaud Zoom for giving you the audio flexibility to say, I want, like when Jeff talks to me, I want his audio to go to my RME interface or go to my headphone jack on my Mac. And
Yeah.
there are scenarios where I prefer Jeff not to be in total mix so I can do other things. So yeah, it's loopback is pretty powerful.
Yeah. It's a little tricky with the logic sometimes of figuring out how things work, but if you just work through it in your head, it's just like anything else. You're just connecting pipes together at the end of the day.
Just seeing if there's any other questions. I think since Jeff was alluding to the website, I was going to pull up the website and just sort of, it's always good to kind of review for people where things are at. So this is the RMEUSA.com website. If you go to RME, was it RMEaudio.com, you'll get a little pop-up. If you're from the US market, you're going to want to choose the, redirect me here. So if you've ever run into that, that's what that's all about.
Yeah,
So,
we've got basically an exact copy of the German website, but it's a little got some specific things for us, including
yeah. So if I go
being
to
able to buy
RME,
parts.
there it is. So I get this website would like to use your current location. As soon as I do that, it redirects me to RME USA. So don't let that freak you out. That's normal. So when you're on the RME USA
Hey, there's a
site,
bug.
there's a
Just went
lot
into
of
Spanish.
there's a lot of you got downloads up here at the top and the support. So a lot of people get confused, like what's the difference? So downloads is where you're going to get your drivers, your manuals. You can even get product images if you're an RME dealer and you're trying to do that, and that's all right here. Support is your fast way to Jeff Petersen, who's on here. So you can ask a question, you can register your product, which brings me up to another question we get every day. How do I register for the plugin? So there's been a lot of confusion about that. If you go to product registration and sort of gloss over this and continue down, that's just a standard registration. What you want to do is you want to click on this banner and go here and register your Babyface Pro or any of your Fireface products here at the bottom. And then somebody on our team, it's actually a human being at the end, who will send you an email with all of the instructions for downloading what you need. So that's kind of worth going over.
Yeah, and from that downloads page, also show them that the Mac info there. If you scroll down just a little bit,
from the downloads page.
Yeah, just scroll down a little there. Keep
Yep.
going. Right there, that red banner. If you click on that, that's going to take you to the Big Sur page. And there's some extra instructions. If you're using the M1 chip, one of the new Apple ARM chips, there's one extra step. And then, the normal Mac allowing the
And I
driver
think we're working on a video on just kind of navigating this, right? Are we doing something there? Is that coming?
Not for me, but maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, it's one of those things that's kind of a moving target because this stuff changes all the time with Apple. But
So you
yeah,
have the M1
there's a little
chip.
bit of a challenge there.
But I think this is a testimony to RME's commitment to being at the forefront and why customers appreciate RME, because we try to be, we write our own drivers. We try to make things fast and simple. And, if you go online and look for an audio interface that works with these new chips, you're not going to find too many options. We're one of the few. I don't want to say we're the only, because there's always exceptions, but I know there's several USA dealers. Sweetwater.com is one that will publish, like, here's all the audio interface companies that we know work with this operating system. And RME is one of the few that work with these new Macs. So this is a huge thing to be aware of.
Typically on day one, they're already working on it with the beta testing as well. So whenever it goes live for real, we at least have a working driver. It may not be as totally efficient as you're used to, but we're getting there. They're always refining it.
Also, we are the distributor of RME. We're the exclusive worldwide distributor of RME. That's Syntax. So if you ever wind up wondering, well, who is Syntax, who is RME, we're the distributor. So, and we have a web page and a YouTube channel for RME USA. You go to youtube.com and just type in RME USA or Syntax Inc. And that's where you're going to see a lot of videos, tutorials, and how-tos. I recommend you subscribe and ring the bell, because every time Jeff uploads a video or a marketing director uploads a video, a lot of it is really help videos more than anything. So you'll be notified and you can stay informed.
Yeah, there's a lot of different videos. There's, performances from artists we're associated with who are RME users. There's technical videos, there's walkthroughs, there's how-tos, there's product info. So there's a lot of great stuff. And yeah, you should probably subscribe both to RME's page, which is youtube.com/RME audio, and also ours, which is youtube.com/Syntax Inc.
And this is what it looks like. And these are a lot of videos here. And then every month we put up a news. So if you want to know what's new at RME, our marketing director Marie, she creates a really good video that's usually right here in place of the live stream. What's going on this month? So if there's any promotions, if there's any new product offerings. So that's why this channel is really, really good to subscribe to.
Cool.
Well, I think that's all the time we got today, unless there's any more questions.
Well, we
have one last question. Do you think you guys would ever make some kind of SonarWorks type speaker EQ management software for your interface? Just a thought. My Roland mixer right now is providing the 31 band EQ for room EQ, but I'd rather have it at the Seymour. So I don't know if you want to tackle that one.
I mean, it's interesting, and there's ways you can do that with, just sort of standalone app or plugin that does the EQing for you. As far as the RME hardware having that access, I mean, it's pretty deep integration, and we really don't have the DSP to do 31 bands. Our EQs on the hardware are 3-band parametric EQ, and then on the ADI2 Pro, it's 5-band. So, a dedicated EQ sort of processor is not a bad thing. I know there's some people doing things like that with the Raspberry Pi mini computers that are, phenomenal for that sort of thing. You just process the audio and spit it back out digital. Yeah, I'd love to see something like that personally, but I just don't see it in our roadmap at this time.
Have you guys ever experienced static? I have a few times, but can't replicate it. Maybe a hardware issue. This is the individual.
It can be a lot of things.
Yeah.
It could be clock problems. It could be something's interrupting your USB or FireWire connection. If it's sharing bandwidth to something else. Hard drives
is this
really
just happening? This is Ivan who was asking in the context of doing live stream. So I was curious if this is happening only when you're doing like live streaming or just in general.
Well, I can tell you from, working with people at the beginning of the pandemic, trying to run OBS and do video processing and audio at the same time on one computer. It's really, really stressful, and you're going to have glitches. So people who are really serious about that are actually doing 2 computers, with one doing the DAW project and the other one doing the OBS streaming compression. So that's kind of probably what you're hitting, but it's hard to say for sure. But yeah, even a powerful laptop is going to struggle to do DAW playback with plugins and also crunch the video for OBS at the same time.
Yeah, what's funny too is, and I guess it's a testimony to the baby face and the drivers. A lot of times I do live webinars, and some of them include DAW playback with plugins while also running Zoom and having several people on. I'm not streaming to YouTube as well, though Zoom can do that. And that's what we're doing today. And I'm amazed. I think I've had 2 or 3 crashes in a year and a half. Where I just kind of and a lot of times I have more than one audio interface working at the same time.
How old is that Mac? It's like a
2015 MacBook Pro. Yeah, and I'll use the babyface for my mic, and then I'm doing something about the DigiFace Dante. So I have 2 USB ports connected at the same time. I'm bouncing between the 2. I'm always amazed, and running with playing videos. It's
and haven't rebooted in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So I'm seeing if we're getting any more context there. No, he said thank you, and John is done asking questions. Well, I guess that's it today. We thank you for your time, and again, please subscribe to the Syntax Inc. YouTube channel, or better known as RME USA. If you search either of those, you will find it. You can also go to RME USA rmeusa.com. Click the YouTube thing on the right, and that will bring you to the proper YouTube channel to subscribe to. So thanks
Perfect.
for watching, and stay safe, and everybody have a great day.